Waiting on the end of the show.
Oh, man.
Remember that, Joe? We're getting a new photo op for us.
Right. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Well, I was going to bring to the signs. Well, good evening and welcome to the Trailer Park Show. We have a very, very interesting discussion this evening that we want to share with you. As you all well know, early vote has begun today and will run to May the 3rd. And to my right is the Honorable Councilmember Don Zimmerman, representing District 6, and the beautiful, gorgeous Marilyn Jackson.
Keep going.
The charm. The charm is here.
The charm is here. And then we have the Travis County Communications Director, Joe Deshotel.
Des.
Yeah, I
What
appreciate
did
that.
I
Democrat
say?
Communications.
Democrat.
Yes.
Okay. What did I say?
Make it plain.
Travis County. You gave
Oh,
me a little,
Democrat.
little boost
Okay.
there.
And then we have our illustrious friend, Mr. Mike Lee, Director of the
Esquire.
African American
Yes.
Reach Out for the Republican Party.
He said reach out.
Outreach
Reach
and
out.
Outreach and engagement.
You're going to
Outreach
reach out,
And
Mike.
engagement. So, we have a very exciting election going on right now, and we want to first make sure from the Trailer Park Show, we always share whatever position you have, we respect that, because at the end of the day, what we really want you to do is to exercise your right to vote and go vote at that poll, and let your voice be measured at that poll. So we have 10 days of it, and there's one item on the ballot, so it takes less than 5 seconds to vote. So let's begin with a small introduction from Councilmember Zimmerman, and then we'll go to Mr. Deshotel.
Well, let's start with the easy part.
Okay.
The thing everybody agrees with. We got to go vote.
We have
We're
to
all
go
in
vote.
agreement. All right.
Yes.
We're all going to go vote. As far as, do you want to talk some later about Prop 1 and how
No,
we got
go
to
ahead, go for it. You're representing the
Northwest
four,
Austin?
the 4, but on the election to vote for position 1.
Yes, vote.
Well, my position on council, of course, was we really shouldn't have got into that fight. Looked to us like there was nothing that needed to be fixed, put that in quotation marks, nothing to fix. You know, everybody was reasonably happy with the rideshare drivers, rideshare passengers. We had a lot of positive commentary. It's unusual where you have something where you have the drivers collecting money, the riders that are paying the money, and both of them seem to be equally happy with the service. You'd like to have that everywhere. You know, typically you've got consumers, right, and they're complaining about this or that, and they're really unhappy, and they're asking for some kind of government regulation or interference or what have you. But in this case, it's one of those rare cases where drivers are happy, passengers are happy. Why are we messing with the rideshare model? You know, we had an ordinance in place since the summer of 2014. Looked like it was working okay. Boy, I tell you, when I walked those couple thousand doors looking for votes, everybody agreed that our traffic congestion is a mess. So we're into about 15 months of the new city council. We still haven't had an intelligent conversation about how to fix the traffic congestion. But we had a huge argument about rideshare and the ordinance was right, and that's been pretty frustrating. So I think Ellen Choxclair and myself, we voted against the ballot language that's out there. We wanted to get this thing resolved without an election, but frankly, there was no way to resolve this without going to the voters. It just wasn't going to happen.
Councilman Zimmerman, if the riders were happy and the drivers were happy, why did the dispute, why did the fight break out?
You'd have to ask the people that brought the fight to the council, and it wasn't me. I kept asking for us to, and I'm still asking for us to work on traffic congestion problem we have. We're about 30 years behind on building our highway infrastructure. I said, please don't get us into this big fight. None of my constituents asked for this. And virtually all of my constituents asked for traffic congestion relief. I serve on that mobility committee, as you know. I'm one of 4 members on the mobility committee, and I'm just exasperated that we even got into this big battle on rideshare, and we still haven't worked on traffic congestion relief.
What is the battle?
Well, I
In
think
short,
it started out as an effort to make rideshare look like taxis. We had taxi franchises. We've had them in place, right, for decades. The taxi franchises look at rideshare. It's a different business model, but it is still people paying money to get a ride from point A to point B. So from that point, it's kind of like a taxi service. But other than that, the business models are very, very different. And the rideshare business model, people like it. They really like it. And it's very popular. And so the TNC franchises look at that and they say, well, this is a potential threat to our business model, right? It's kind of like Blockbuster Video versus Netflix, something like that. So they wanted what they called a level playing field. And I said, well, fine. Let's have a level playing field by reducing some of the stupid regulations that are on the taxis and make them more competitive. Let's let the taxi franchises adapt to the consumer demand of what people really want out of a ride. Let's deregulate them and let them pick something that makes sense for that taxi model and let them compete better. And they basically said to me, no. We want the rideshare people to have to do everything that the taxis do. And I said, well, I can't support that. That's not going to work. Let's deregulate and let's liberalize the taxi franchises so they can compete more and make their customers happy. Let's go that direction. No. Let's put all these regulations onto the rideshare. And I said, no, we're not going to do that. So that's where we are today.
Joe, you have, you're pushing for people to vote against
Yeah,
the measure,
absolutely.
and so we're going to take your take on that.
Okay. Well, first I'll say I agreed with actually a lot of what the councilman said in terms of let's move away from the old model that we have and let's come up with something that can work for everybody in the ride for hire industry. I believe that the council was working towards that whenever this election blew all that up. And we moved away from addressing issues that were of substance, in my opinion, to now going from a policy debate to a political debate. So instead of having a policy debate about which policies are really better, we're in this political debate on do you vote against or do you vote for? And neither one is going to be perfect. But voting against will send everybody back to the table so that we can work on reforming the entire ride for hire industry versus setting up a loophole for certain ride for hire companies to operate in allowing the traditional ride for hire services like taxis to still operate on the old regime. I mean, I do think that taxi cabs put a fair amount of push to limit the proliferation of the TNCs. But I definitely don't think that the TNCs are good corporate actors, especially Uber specifically, in this process. In 2014, I worked with Chris Riley. A lot of the organizations I worked with endorsed Chris Riley. He's the one who brought the pilot program for Uber and Lyft to operate because he himself is an urbanist, maybe disagrees with Councilman Zimmerman on probably everything else, maybe, I don't know, but very much on the opposite end, but supportive of the concept of ride sharing, the concept of TNCs. And I remember I actually brought in one of the taxi, I won't name which one, but I brought in some representatives from one of the local taxi cab companies to meet with Chris Riley and say, hey, this is an opportunity for you guys to innovate. If you can work with Chris Riley, maybe we can do some cool things that open up the taxi industry for you to be more profitable and be able to compete with this new model that's not going anywhere, and we can all pretty much agree with that. So, I am pushing personally for people to vote against Prop 1 because I want to bring, I'll say it this way. If Prop 1 passes, the whatever Uber has pushed for will become law. If Prop 1 fails, Uber will be pushed back to the table to work with everybody, and that's what I want to see. And so that's really what my take is. I know that the council and other members and really other members of the public have all kinds of other reasons they're voting against Prop 1. Some people, it's fingerprinting. But specifically the Democratic Party, who I work for, our precinct chairs who passed the resolution opposing Prop 1 was mostly on the basis of the corporate money that's been put into this campaign, the corporate money they knew was coming, and generally the way that Uber has behaved with our city council, which isn't unique to Austin. I mean, this is going on all over the country. They've settled lawsuits in their own hometown. They just settled a $100 million lawsuit with drivers. So that was 385,000 drivers. So I can't really say that all the drivers agree with this. I've talked to quite a few drivers who say, I can't make any money, I'm not going to drive anymore. And the fact of having all these drivers on the road and the fact that Uber can just flood the streets with drivers because the barrier to entry is so low drives down the price of the ride, but it also drives down that wage for the driver. And if all the burden is on the driver for maintenance and oil changes and tires and gasoline and insurance, then I think then it's really unsustainable in the end of the day. Because what Uber is doing is they're subsidizing the ride on both sides. They're subsidizing the rider by giving away all these free rides, free ride for you, free ride for you. They're subsidizing the driver by saying, well, it doesn't matter what the fare is, we're going to guarantee you this amount because we want you out there. That's really unsustainable. And I think we need to look at the big picture on that.
Well, whether or not that's unsustainable, isn't that the business's business?
No,
is
it's
it the business of city council to make sure that a business makes a profit?
Well, it is the city's council's responsibility to regulate ground transportation. And when you look at our public infrastructure and our congestion, these companies need to put in some money to maintain the roads that they make profits off of. And if you look at what Uber has done, essentially, they've created, and other companies do this, it's definitely true, created shell companies and offshore accounts to funnel all their profits through. And they're trying to avoid paying any kind of taxes to the city of Austin.
Well, what is?
And so I have a problem with that. Now, they
since-
say they'll pay 1%. I just want to be clear so it doesn't seem like they're saying they don't want to pay
Was
anything.
this country founded on objection to paying taxes?
Actually, the Tea Party, yeah, I mean.
No, I'm talking about I'm going back to the
Europe.
Declaration of Independence.
But
There was a Tea
But the
Party in
idea
Boston
that you're
back
not
in-
going to pay taxes, that was taxation without representation. I think Uber is well represented by $62 billion worth of valuation.
You're angry because they make money or have money?
Oh no, not at all. I mean, I have an iPhone in my pocket. I mean, iPhone is worth, Apple's worth more than Uber. So, no, not at all. I have no problem with that.
Why not take over Apple or Google or anybody else?
Well, I think the bottom line is I think it should be fair, and I do think it's the government's job to ultimately be the consumer protection agency for the voters.
Have the consumers complained?
Well, we just talked about one lawsuit at 385,000 drivers, so I definitely think that there's an issue with some parts of their business model that needs to be addressed
But in
from a
Austin-
consumer.
If the government
Yeah,
took over,
there's definitely drivers in Austin, but their
government-
model's
if
the same everywhere.
if the government took over, wouldn't it be harder to pursue a lawsuit than it would be if it didn't?
I'm not sure what
Because
you mean by the government
have a
taking over.
You have a Tort Claims Act when you have to try to sue the government.
I'm
So it becomes
not
much
following
more
on,
burden.
on when the government takes over Uber.
It becomes much more burdensome to the person complaining and to the person defending. Because the Tort Claims Act, you have time limitations. You have notice you have to send. You have to wait 6 months for this. Time limits for that. Get to court under the Tort Claims Act. That the governments operate under because of the doctrine of sovereign immunity. So it's easier for private parties to sue each other than it is for a private party to sue the government.
But I'm not really understanding what that has to do with the Uber lawsuits necessarily.
Well, you mentioned
those
lawsuits.
were
Well, doesn't that have
yeah.
to do with business in general? The point you're making, if the city government runs or owns some kind of business, I'll give you an example of what you're talking about with the tort. We had a case in District 6 where I believe it was PUC. They were drilling a hole to put in a telephone pole, and they asked the Austin Water Utility. That's a government monopoly. So the Austin Water Utility said, "Hey, come out and mark the pipes, okay, in front of this person's house." So the city government sends out a contractor. The Austin Water Utility sends out a contractor. He paints on the street and he says, "It's all clear, no pipes here." So the guy starts drilling. He hits a sewer pipe. The sewer starts running into the house of my constituent. Her house fills up with a lot of, stinky sewage, okay? But the government said that the Austin Water Utility says, "We're not liable. We have sovereign immunity. We don't have to pay. It's our fault that we misidentified the pipes. We didn't tell that guy the pipe was there, and when he hit the pipe, sewage backed up in my constituent's house." City government says, "Sovereign immunity, not our problem." That's what you're talking about, I think, when it comes to...
That's an example. What I'm talking about more specifically is, it sounds like a vote against Prop 1 is a vote to create chaos and confusion where none needs to exist. And it's all because the city, I guess the government wants to make sure that this person is treated the way the government thinks they should be treated, or that person should be treated, or this company should pay this much, and this person, they're trying to regulate who makes what in a private business transaction.
Well, they do. Now, here's my question. Okay, just like the city, give all these other companies kickbacks that come into Austin and open up a business here. What did they do for Uber?
Why should they do anything for Uber?
No, I'm asking. Oh, did they?
They pass a temporary ordinance so they can allow to operate legally. I think that was a pretty
Okay,
good.
so, I'm just
pretty
saying,
good get.
these other companies, they get all kinds of, you don't have to pay taxes until 10 years later. We're going to pay you to come here, is what I'm saying.
You're talking
Well,
corporate incentives.
Yeah, but
Yes.
most
Okay,
of those
so
are for
what-
building large,
Okay,
projects.
so
and
was an incentive given to Uber?
I don't think there's any incentive
Don?
necessary
No,
to
of
give
course
to
not,
Uber.
no.
Well, the reason, the main reasons they provide those incentives is for jobs.
Well, the Uber
So,
created jobs.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they created a lot of jobs.
So I'm just
So-
saying, okay, so so if you give an incentive, and I'm not saying, you're saying they may not have, to come in, but then yet you want to vote against what it is that's happening.
I mean, I think having a city of 1 million people is a pretty good enough incentive for Uber to be operating here. I think in terms of Apple and stuff like that, I mean, they create really high wage jobs, which Uber doesn't. And so I think that is one difference. They also create what is supposed to be long-term, full-time jobs, which Uber also doesn't because they don't have employees. So, I mean, they may have like 5 employees in the city of Austin, but they're not actually employing their drivers. And that's what that $100 million lawsuit that they just settled last week was about, was, the employment status. And if you're not going to claim that these people are employees, but you put the entire burden on them, there has to be some way to bring some equity to these jobs when you're telling these people you can go make all this money, and then they start doing the math and they're not making that money. And so I do think that they bear some responsibility to the drivers. When I feel like that they're incentivized they're going to make money and do something, and then it turns out that in the wash is just not a reality, that they're making so many and really so much money. And I think that's really what the fingerprinting comes down to. It's not for many people about a public safety issue. It's really about the fact.
Let me ask this question. I don't know. I might have had a dream, but I remember when I went to go get my driver's license, I had to put my.
That was your thumb.
Well, I mean, but.
Yeah, but you have 9 other.
So I could commit a crime with everything but my thumb, and it'll be okay.
Exactly. So that's why you need all 10 fingerprints to drive for
But this
Uber
is
or the taxi
thing-
cab.
This is the thing for me. Okay, so you do the background check on the Uber and Lyft. They have background checks. But really, nobody's doing a background check on the person that get in the back seat of your car.
So I think that's a
And-
pretty good point.
I mean, I'm registered both with Uber and Lyft as well. And the only thing I can tell you about Uber is that, well, they did have a price increase in the wage. But Uber, the text messages go off 90 to nothing telling you where the hot spots are, telling you where to go, where
Right.
the demand is.
Exactly.
Okay, so there's a way to make money if you want to make the money, but the fact is that everybody's complaining and talking about the fingerprinting, and that's fine, that's good. I didn't have a problem doing my background check. Ain't nothing on it, but I still don't know what sly snake is getting in the back seat of my car either. Who somebody could hit me over the backside of my head like they've done in other states and other cities. So,
Yeah. Well,
Let me jump in if I could about the corporate money right quick,
Yeah,
because there's
please
a lot
do.
of money in here. But anybody remember the election we had back in the fall, downtown Travis County Courthouse, $300 million boondoggle, downtown there. Anybody know how much corporate money went into that campaign
Tell
to pass
us.
those bonds?
why don't you tell us?
Well, it was in the hundreds of thousands, and typically, out-of-state corporations are allowed to make unlimited contributions
Really?
to influence elections here locally for bonds, for these expensive bonds. And these would be companies that are going to profit from the bonds, okay? Maybe a law firm, construction firm, architecture firm, all these firms that stand to make money off you and me in these huge bond issues, they contribute big checks. They write
To
big
the
checks
city.
in. No, to the campaign. To the campaign to pass the bonds, to get you to vote for that bond. Right? Their TV ads, their slick mailers, whatever they can spend money on. There's unlimited corporate money right now allowed in the bond issues to get you to raise your taxes and spend more money.
But there's
So
a limit on an individual that want to donate to a campaign.
When it
There's a
comes to
limit.
individual campaigns, right, there's limits and there's a prohibition against corporate donations, but when it comes to issue campaigns. Issue campaigns, like bonds, like Prop 1. But let me go back to the safety question right quick, because this kind of started with a discussion about safety. The more I think about safety, and is it the city's job to define what safety is? What is safe? So I wonder about our drinking industry down on 6th Street. We've got a lot of bars, people come in there and get hammered, right? Mm-hmm. You know what happens down there a lot is people decide, they'll have a couple of drinks and they'll start talking. Hey, that's Sally and that's Jim over there. How does Sally know that Jim is Jim, and how does Jim know that Sally's Sally? They just met in a bar and they're drinking.
Well,
Is the city going to decide that kind of behavior is unsafe? Because Sally and Jim might have a few too many drinks. They might hitch a ride somewhere, and go and maybe have sex, casual, recreational sex. People do that. And that can endanger your life, okay? Having sex with a stranger. You don't know who that person is. We have the freedom to do that in the city. Is the city council going to say, that's not very safe? We need to make sure that everybody that steps into a bar surrenders their 5 fingerprints so that we can identify them. So that when you hook up, you know that person that you're hooking up is who they say they are. Because if you have sex with them unprotected, you could get a disease and die. That's not very safe, is it?
Well,
You see where this crazy idea that the government is in charge of your safety, and the government's going to decide what safe is. Right now, the government wants to say, you got to give up your fingerprints and go through the government's hoop, because they're going to define what a safe ride is. Are they going to decide what a safe date is that you pick up on 6th Street?
Does the city
Where
of
does this
Austin
end,
require the taxi cab drivers to undergo fingerprinting and background checks too?
right, they do, yes. So
Then if
so
that's safe,
yeah.
why don't people that go to bars and get drunk and go home and have sex, why aren't they
Well, and not to mention,
the city's
you've
going to
had-
demand, you got to give your fingerprints because I got to know who you are.
Well,
Gotta know
you've
who you
had
are,
taxi
Let
cab
me ask-
drivers do unethical things when they picked up
it's
a female
crazy.
rider that may have been intoxicated. I mean, I'm just saying.
Yeah, the city government is not your mother.
Right,
you know?
right.
Heck to the
And,
no.
they can't keep you safe. They can't
No, they
make you
can't.
safe. No, they can't.
Go ahead, Joe.
Well, just a couple of things. One, I think it's a big jump to make that leap about people in bars because, first of all, the laws
They're not allowed to make a decision they're allowed to make a decision for themselves. Why are they allowed in the city of Austin to make a decision of who they have sex with and they have no idea who it is, but they can't get into a Uber or a Lyft car without fingerprints? Got to know the person that's driving you. Why? Why do you need to know that? Why do you need to know that? Why do you need to have their fingerprints? You don't have the fingerprints of the person you go on a date with.
And I never asked the question of how long does that stay on somebody's telephone?
Y'all hear that?
I'm not sure what you.
Okay, so I pick up a person. I'm an Uber driver. They have my photo. They know what my license tag is. I never asked how long does that information stay in their telephone.
Oh, well, I think that's a good question to ask Uber. I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, I'm
one.
just saying.
Yeah, no.
So you're talking about so the city council wants to make sure that the drivers, and I'm saying it too, because I'm about tired of the city. It really, you know what, the city government, Don, need to sit down somewhere and mind their own business.
They need
Because
to
they
get
are
on the
so
trailer park
used-
show.
Well,
Yeah.
bring them on, bring them. We
Bring
got
them in
some
here.
chairs, bring them. You know why? Because they're so busy getting in everybody's
Yep.
business,
Well,
but
in
they
your
neglect
business.
their own business.
Yep.
You can't balance the budget. Don't get me started.
Yep.
You can't balance
Bring
the
it,
budget.
bring it. No,
Your
go ahead and bring
priorities
it.
are so screwed up.
Go ahead and bring
And
it.
then you're talking about, excuse me, Deshotel. You said it about our infrastructure with the traffic, and I believe it's 2 million people in the city. Is that not right?
In the Travis County
Metro
Metro.
area.
Okay.
Metro
SMSA.
area.
It's too many. It's too many. So I'm just saying, for what we have, and more people come to the city weekly. And you know what, Don?
Yeah.
Really, they haven't done a doggone thing about it, but yet we keep inviting companies and more people to come in and in and in, and yet our poor streets are just crazy. That's the kind of business y'all need to get into. And not only that, you need to really balance the budget. Where is the priorities at in this city?
Well, the good news is that since this new council has been in, I haven't seen, other than the CODA track, which I voted against, they had a subsidy for Circuit of the Americas, yet another subsidy. But that one only passed by one vote. There's some help on the way. I think subsidies are going to be pretty hard to get. I don't think any, other than CODA, I don't know of any that have passed in the new 10-1.
This
know.
is my concern because right now, as we're talking in this whole election and the vote and the debate and bullies and all this other good stuff, I can call 2 nickel, underground taxi cab in the barrio. 2 nickel.
Well,
Say, hey, I need to go to whatever. Okay, he comes.
Not
meets me.
anymore.
No, we still can.
Just joking.
I
Just 'cause
can
you
call,
announced it.
I can call 2 nickel right now and say, hey, I need to go South Charleston. Okay, I'll go pick you up. Now, or let me put it this way: I call my cousin. Hey, I need a ride to Walmart. Okay, I'm gonna charge you $15. I said, okay. Now, is government not gonna want to go in there and say, hey, those 15?
You're talking about black market taxi
two
service,
of them
right?
come to me,
Yeah.
and it's okay.
They call it bootlegging.
Well,
the hood.
bootleg.
So
Black
I'm
market.
talking about government, specifically this particular government in general, because I don't know. The only thing I can say is that so many issues that we have at the city, yet this one issue has taken so much time of
money.
resources.
Time and
There you
money,
go.
yeah.
There you
Well,
go.
we all agree on
You know,
that, so
and-
it's not.
And here's my other
Yeah.
pitch, and I'll
And
quit.
it's petty,
And-
really. They should have got out of,
You
just
know,
stayed
it's
out of it,
interesting.
Don.
Stay out of
Tell
it.
your people, stay out of it.
They should have stayed out of it.
I'm telling you.
I
it's
told
a-
them, Maryland, stay out of it.
Ooh.
It's like my friend
Shoulda stayed out of it.
David Butts and my other friend works at ACC. They wrote an article
Young.
early, Peck Young, whining about all this corporate money and all these candidates getting on. And I said, wait a minute. One, it's legal. It's part of the game, the political game. Everyone brings in whatever resources they can to outbeat each other. And I said, wait a minute. Bullies? What about the bullies from the council to us in East Austin that are gentrifying us? Where's the press conference on that? You know, why aren't we addressing those kind of issues?
I think they have actually.
Well, you know,
I mean,
they came up. Well, they came up with this Homestead Preservation District. That's a land grab
It's more subsidies. It's more
because-
subsidized housing.
because the Homestead Preservation, we fought that at
Well,
the House, and Governor Perry vetoed it twice. He didn't the third time, but that's a land grab. This is the deal under that. I have my own property. I have my home. I can't pay my taxes. A nonprofit comes in.
Say something, man. Let us talk.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Here we come, here we come.
All right.
Dove Springs, I think, is the next one to be gentrified. We've heard that Miss Dia Garza is joining up with, what's her name, who used to live over there off Rainy Street? What
Got
was her
me.
name?
Jackie Good.
Jackie Goodman.
I'm from the northwest side.
Well, gentrify up there.
well, they don't want that.
Gentrifying in South Austin.
They don't want it there either. So
Well,
You know, we're in Duplexville.
But
Hey, we're supposed to be on Prop 1.
but we're going back to
Yeah,
Prop
we're
1.
back
Yeah,
to
go
Prop
back to
one.
Prop 1,
Back
but you
Prop
mentioned
one.
gentrify. I couldn't
Right.
I had to come out and say
Right.
something.
Yeah, we interrupted this Prop 1 discussion for a
I'm sure
service
we'll come back
announcement.
to it
Public
too.
service announcement on
Again, you know,
gentrification.
when-
Oh, by the way,
Yeah.
people, the rap videos at 7:30.
Okay.
So
All right.
2 minutes.
got it ready to go.
Got it queued up.
Closed captioning on, so for people who can't
Okay.
understand what's being said.
Okay, and then
Sounds
we'll come
good.
back.
Yeah. So to me, I
Come
guess
back.
if it's going to be a fair fight, let's have it be a fair fight. You know, how can what is that saying? How can the black cattle call the?
Okay, here's the thing.
But I don't know.
This is the thing about city council, and I hope and pray that everybody gets out and vote. It's so important that you really get out and vote. Because should the city council, they're against it, if they lose, then that'll mean that the voters stood up and spoke of what it is they wanted to happen in the city. So please get up and make your voice be heard, make your vote count.
well, I think the whole idea of the money is questioning that and what influenced people to vote, and was it proper information, was it valuable information, or was it simply propaganda from one side? And I think when you look at the numbers, 15,000 on the against side, 2 million plus from 3 weeks ago on the Uber side, you know, I think there's an imbalance there.
Right, but
And,
Joe, excuse me, but Joe, these people have raised the same amount of money when they run other campaigns.
Well, that's not true, actually.
it is,
This
because
is by far the
Watson,
most money that's ever.
Doggett have put in money to campaigns in East Austin, and they don't even live there.
But not nearly
The
this
only
much
reason we
money.
have Pio Renteria sitting on there is because Doggett went in there, took over, and said, "This is our election." And then those of us that work for single member districts, that statement hit us. be careful what you ask for, because
Yeah.
you know
That
so-
single member district, which
so-
was
so
a real.
that's what I'm saying. You know, how can
Yeah,
they,
we're back to single member
Yeah,
district.
that's
No,
what.
no, no,
Back to
no.
Prop one.
I was.
I'm
I had a
going-
comment on
it's all
Prop
relevant.
one.
It's all
Actually, we're
relevant.
going to go to a
It's-
movie here in a minute.
Yeah.
It's all relevant because it's the same players that are crying foul. I bet you if David Butts and Peck Young were hired to work for Prop 1, it wouldn't have been an issue.
All right, well, let's
That's
get
an
our
interesting
little
thought.
video
I
and
don't
Let's let Joe talk when we get back.
All right.
Thank you.
I know
But-
you get excited there, but.
East Austin business owners say they woke up this morning to find their store destroyed. It wasn't vandals, but a demolition crew that had all the right permits. How does something like this happen? How does something like this happen? How does something like this happen? How does something like this happen?
It's a must, we compete for profit. When it goes to the deepest pockets. He was all about peace and progress. Way before you called it Caesar Chavez. It was First Street and the worst street. Bunch of Mexicanos on a 7-day work week. Selling raspas, corn and piñatas. Back when all the casas were owned by la raza. There were rascals riding down Haskell. Now it's full of vatos on bikes with satchels. Oh, you mad, bro? How you think we feel? Kick us out the barrio and now you wanna rebuild? Mr. Hipster, boy, you must have missed ya. Maybach on its way back to Lago Vista. It's the east side, it's the rest of peace side. Better put your mask on before you shake the beehive. And my father from the grave telling me I gotta do it. Boy, lit the match and you got the lighter fluid. And keep it all real, if you don't, you're gonna ruin it. And don't you hold back, don't you dare auto-tune. If I was born in Munich, then I bet I would remember everything that happened on that Black September day. But instead I'm from the A, best believe that if I don't got something to say. Silka Park wasn't always for the hippies. It was segregated to the 1960s. Built up an interstate, hoping to discriminate, hoping we would stay put and we would never penetrate the west side of 35. Isn't it ironic that we were exiled? Now these motherfuckers want it back. Gentrification, been hit the page, now the whole city knows Lynch is amazing. My beautiful city, my beautiful home. You were so naturally perfect, I wish they leave you alone. I see that you're grown, I see that you're shining. Before the world ever knew that you were a beautiful diamond. Such a beautiful diamond, making beautiful sounds. You were the live music capital, the violet crown. Still take pride in my time, but it's changing too often. Got me asking myself, partner, what happened to Austin? Feels so good to get it off my chest, even though a couple fools wanna stop my quest. Still got my skipper pin from the Aqua Fest. Still never been to South by Southwest. Seen what they did to the friends on Congress. That they wanna do the same thing in my topless. Make it all spotless, take out the time, grow, raise up the taxes, build up the condo. What about the history? What about the movement? Everyone who fought for the sake of improvement. Back to the old suit. Every time I roll through, I'm afraid Pan Am's gonna be a whole fool. Every thought that if we fought back, finally came together, man, we could all stop that. We could look back, say we did that, we all took from it, now it's time that we get back. It feels right there when my grandpa played. Crystal Ray Church when my grandma prayed. Santa Rita course when my fam all stayed. Back when Lil Joe used to jam all day. Now it's in the 4-5, now it's in the 04. Now they been in condos up and down so cold. Me up on the 4-4 where we get it poppin'. While the rent keep climbing, but the crime ain't dropping. I don't understand it around here no more. Feel like a transplant everywhere that I go. $1 million homes, you can see them on Zillow. You don't gotta look for it, you can see them on Willow. Head up on my pillow, but I'm feeling so restless. Half these motherfuckers ain't even from Texas. Rolling the Chicano Park, yelling out fuel. Keep it down, buddy, it scared my poodle. So my pupils feel the way that I do. Respect our intelligence, we're tired of being lied to. You act like we're blind to what's going on in front of us. Gentrification benefits none of us. Some of us sell dope, some of us steal. Most of us work hard and always will. We ain't trying to get rich, we just trying to pay bills. You and your multi-million-dollar deal, bro. My beautiful city, my beautiful home. You were so naturally perfect, I wish they leave you alone. I see that you're grown, I see that you're shining. Before the world ever knew what you were. Park yelling out fuel. Keep it down, buddy, it scared my poodle. So my pupils feel the way that I do. Respect our intelligence, we're tired of being lied to. You act like we're blind to what's going on in front of us. Gentrification benefits none of us. Some of us sell dope, some of us steal. Most of us work hard and always will. We ain't trying to get rich, we just trying to pay bills. You and your multi-million-dollar deal, bro. My beautiful city, my beautiful home. You were so naturally perfect, I wish they leave you alone. I see that you're grown, I see that you're shining. Before the world ever knew what you were. A beautiful diamond, such a beautiful diamond, making beautiful sounds. You were the live music capital, the violet crown. Still take pride spot. Know what happened to Austin?
East Austin business owners say they woke up
Of a young Latino having to realize the losing of their community, their culture, their, you know.
I told you, the burial's gone now.
Yeah.
You voted for it.
But you know what, Gavino? This video is so real.
Oh, it's
I mean,
real, that's what I'm saying.
I'm an Austinite, born and raised here. Very few people are from Austin that are
Right.
in this city.
Same here.
And I'm telling you, I identified with everything this rapper was saying. And I love the fact that at his young age, that they know what's happening.
Right.
I mean, it's something to sit on the stoop and complain about it when he's talking about in his area down Cesar Chavez. And I'm just going to be pointing, when you see a white man walking down or riding a bike with a backpack on, it's so different than what it was when he was growing up. I mean, it's so real when he's saying this was our beautiful city. I understand change needs to happen. I mean, because without change, how will we ever get to the next level of where it is we need to go? But there are some things that really, when it comes down to affecting people's lives, that's going too far. Let them make that decision. And I know some of them have made it if they can't pay their taxes, you know, so they reap the repercussions of things that happen. But in the same instance, I mean, I drive down a area that I don't live in, and I hadn't been there in a while, and I'm saying, what in the world happened? Where did this come from?
That's a whole other show, okay?
Well,
yes,
yeah,
yes, but Pokey, I'm telling you, it's crazy.
Well, let me chime in on this because I think it comes into this whole conversation we've been having, and I think there's some diametrically opposed issues that seem to be hitting each other like a wall. First of all, the idea of the free market can solve everything versus we've got to keep all this development from happening in our city are really opposed to each other. What the city council at least has tried to do, I think, is find some balance. Like, I'll give you an example. I saw this guy perform actually at the Scoot Inn, which is a historic bar in East Austin, been there over 100-something years. Now they're about to do this huge development on 5th Street with Capital Metro, but included is some affordable housing, which I know Mr. Zimmerman was talking about, more subsidies, whatever, but that's how you That's one of the tools that we have to try and keep the place affordable for people who are being pushed out. But one of the cool things I thought about it, not only did City Council vote to make sure that construction workers who build the thing can actually maybe possibly still live in this city with a living wage, but also they decided, let's keep the Scoot Inn. You know, let's work and let's try and preserve some parts of that are actually have meaning to the community. And I think those are the type of balances that we need to be able to strike and that we can try and strike. And going back to just quickly with the 10-1 thing, your coalition that brought that 10-1, that was the broadest coalition I've ever seen in the city of Austin come together to support something. Republicans, Democrats, Libertarians, Independents, environmentalists, everybody. And that was a petition drive. It was a real people-powered petition drive. That gave us the city council that we have. And to bring it back to Prop 1, that is the city council that voted 9-2 to implement the ordinance that Prop 1 will overturn. And I think that is a major
What do
issue.
you say about the 65,000 signatures that they got to put it on the ballot?
You know what? I'll tell you what I say about it. I guarantee you, especially with $750,000, which is how much they spent for that, I could go outside and get 65,000 signatures to serve craft beer on the corner. I guarantee I can get 65,000 signatures for breakfast tacos
Well, the
being
Democratic
served
Party has
24
done that,
hours
you know, so
24 hours a day. So the idea that you can get 65,000 people, and they only turned in 23,000 signatures, so we have no idea how many of those were actually Austinites or even knew what it was they were signing. Do you like Lyft and Uber? Yeah, sure, I would have signed that. But am I going to vote against Prop 1? Yes, I'm absolutely.
Have you used Uber or Lyft?
I have used Lyft many times. I've ridden in an Uber, but I've never called one on my phone. So.
But you felt safe when you were using it.
Oh yeah, and as a
As it is
6'4"
right now.
man, I
As
think
it
it's
is right
perfectly obvious that I might feel safe. But so I don't necessarily question other people who feel less safe. I think what we should do is try and strike a balance, and we can't guarantee safety. But I think even people feeling safe is important, even if that doesn't mean that you're necessarily
Here's
safe.
my analogy on that one. We have uniformed people that take fingerprints, that have fingerprints. They enter fingerprints. Yet when they get it in their cars, a lot of times they're killed. And that's APD police. So fingerprinting does not indicate safety. That's my point.
Well,
Well, my question about the whole shebang, so to speak, is why is the government trying to take over a private business or regulate a private relationship?
That's what the
Well,
city of Austin does.
It starts with the fact that the city has taxi franchise. I think that's what's at issue here, right? The city already had a taxi franchise. Let me put it this way. If the city were in the business of renting videos, VHS tapes, like Blockbuster Video, right? If they had a vested interest in Blockbuster Video, they'd be trying to put regulations on Netflix, right? Because they're in competition with the city's franchise, Blockbuster. So because, thankfully, because the city of Austin did not have a vested interest in Blockbuster Video, they were allowed to go away. But that's not true with the taxis. With the taxis, the city has a vested interest in the taxi franchise. You know, they have a bunch of ordinances and rules they put in place for taxis. They have a taxi franchise agreement. They collect permits for these monies involved, right? So they've got they've got a vested interest in the game. That's why they're meddling in the rideshare business.
I think I want to push back
That's
on
why
that a
they're
little bit
meddling in the rideshare business.
because I don't really think that's really the major issue personally, because I think the more you have transportation options, the more money the city is going to be able to bring in, because the more people out there giving rides and get a little cut goes to the city, which I absolutely think should, because it's our infrastructure that we're talking about and we have to pay for it.
No, the people have to pay for it. The people paid for it.
The people pay for it, but according to Citizens United, government is businesses are people.
Do we need another commercial break here?
No, I have a question for you.
You had a question? Okay.
You have to hit my computer to get this off.
Okay.
So
Okay, all right. This is a
Yes or no?
KUT.org thing, and it's you know, because I've been doing research on this thing,
Right.
and down at the bottom of this page, it has two separate set of documents that are 11 pages long, which are the actual ordinances.
Correct.
You see those?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I've been through those. Yeah. Been there and done that.
So
That's a lot of crap to go through, by the way. You know.
yeah, but
It's not just about fingerprinting. It's a whole bunch of other garbage that has everything to do with taxis and nothing to do with rideshare.
Okay.
This is back to my point.
Okay.
Do you need to have a fire extinguisher in your car? Yes or no?
So if people want to,
If you're going to be a taxis have fire extinguishers. How many?
Like
You got a fire extinguisher in your car, Pokey?
yeah, me. But anyways, it's kind of interesting to think, because above those, it's got, you know, if you're voting yes, this is what it does. It's kind of an interesting little website. So if people want to take a look, just for a bit, I don't believe everything that's on it, but it's KUT.org, and it's explaining exactly what the vote means on Proposition 1. I thought it was kind of interesting.
Well, thank you for bringing that up.
But this 11 pages was a bunch of
A bunch of stuff in there.
exactly.
Stuff is the best word. We're on
But is
TV,
it
so we call
actually
it
in the
stuff.
writing? In the
I got another word for it,
proposition?
Marilyn. But
right, so
Does it when you do the wording of the proposition on the ballot, does it capture all that's in those documents?
absolutely not. You only get a few words.
There you go. That's
You only
what
you only get a few words to describe.
So you better know
What it
what
is.
you're going
Yeah,
to vote
so
for
I
before
would-
you
I
go.
would encourage
How many
people
people
to
are
go
gonna?
here.
How many people are gonna go through 11 pages
Absolutely.
of ordinances to
Me.
figure out what they're voting
Me,
on?
Yeah,
I'm
that-
gonna do
do it?
all of
Okay.
it because I like to read that stuff.
yeah, but it's a very small number of people, and that's precisely why I've advocated people to vote against Prop 1, because because we vote for our city council members, and I expect them to come up with public policy, and it's quite clear in the city charter that ground transportation, and that's universal really everywhere, is a local issue that is legislated by the city council.
But now you kind of get a sense of how we feel when these people are doing public policy. They're running us out of our own backyard.
Well, I don't think so. The
want
market
kind
is
of
that.
public
The
policy.
market is doing that.
Well, that's the same thing with Uber
Well,
and
but
Lyft.
the government is
We
not.
marked as well. Yeah, there are
So
market
our-
pressures.
Well, my
Uber
whole
market
thing
pressures.
about it is that the city of Austin has always been so, they don't listen to what the people say. They just, you know, is they already, their mind is already made up of what they're going to do in the first place. And it's just not cool. So for them to come up with the policy on their own self, don't know what, you know, haven't taken into consideration what it is that the public wants, that's not cool.
I guess my real question I have about the whole thing is this about power or about people? Because I've learned that the NAACP is backing, is for the proposition. The Urban League, I know college students who are paying their rents because they're driving these cars, and they're not complaining about how much they make. If I heard a whole bunch of complaints from drivers and customers, that's one thing.
Yeah.
But just to jump in.
Yeah, but
Makes no sense to me.
again, you can
Because
say that.
you think you're smarter than everybody else, and you're going to impose how you think
What's
things should be.
best
Well, I mean,
without-
I suggest that-
without checking with them.
I suggest going to Google and doing some searching on what Uber is doing around the country and around the world, and you will see a lot of people complaining. In third world countries where we have less good government and security, you're seeing riots over Uber. Riots where people are being
I'm not in that country.
injured. Well,
I'm not in that
I think
country.
it's important when you're
Here's the
criticizing
thing.
our government to understand the difference.
If we had some riots here, I'd understand. But we're not.
So,
This is the thing
that's
I
why
don't-
we wanna
I
prevent
can't
that from happening.
understand. It worked. They operated for 2 years,
Nearly 2 years.
almost 2 years.
On a temporary ordinance, yes.
Well, yes.
On an ordinance.
And
Yeah,
where
had
is
an
the stack
ordinance.
of complaints?
Yeah, there's no stack of
Because they've
complaints.
operated under that fashion.
Yep.
That's the only thing. You know, like I said, I work for an elected official, and those are the kind of things
Well,
that we
well,
gauge,
Let me take off on that point. Yeah, they call it a temporary ordinance. All right, let's call it a temporary ordinance. It's an ordinance. It's an
Right,
ordinance.
it's
It's got all these
law.
rules and
Law.
regulations that the TNCs are operating under. It's an ordinance. It's in place for a couple of years or so, year and a half. There's not a problem. This is your point.
Well,
there's not a problem.
there is a problem because
there's not a problem
because in the ordinance, number 14.14 literally instructs the city manager to create an equitable system among all transportation
Did he
companies.
What
did he
about-
do?
That has not been done.
Has he done it?
That
So you're
that-
saying vote
what
for
is- and what is-
chaos?
what is
No,
an
not at all.
equitable- what
Absolutely
is an there's no such thing as an equitable
Yeah, absolutely
system.
there is, and I can
There
tell
is
you right
not.
now.
It determined that's in the judgment. That is a judgment call. It is a subjective call. One person says it's equitable. Somebody else says it's inequitable.
Well, let
Who's
me
right?
let me give you
There's
an
no way to
example.
know.
Let me give
There's
you.
no way to know.
I'll give you some specifics. So, what it would look like in my vision.
Let me stop right there. You're right. In your vision,
I said
there
that
would be
'cause
something that would be equitable.
I said
In
that
somebody
because-
else's vision, it's different. In somebody else's vision, it's different. Everybody has a different view of what equitable is. So there's no such thing as being equitable because it's up to everybody's opinion what equity means.
Well, it's just like when
So
you.
it's not objective.
It's just like when you started talking earlier and you said that instead of over-regulating this industry, let's reduce the regulations on that industry. I think that is the concept of creating equity amongst the different stakeholders. And so what it would look like in one version at least is that since they're independent contractors, I believe they should be vetted one time to be able to drive for whoever they want to drive for. They can drive for Lyft today. They can drive for Yellow Cab tomorrow. They can drive a pedicab on Wednesday. They can, do something else. They can drive a limo the next day. But the way it's set up now is that you can go, say you're a taxi cab driver, you're not making any money driving Yellow Cab because of the system we have now. And then
Maybe you need to
decide,
get another job.
okay, let's go drive for a Lyft and Uber now. Now, if you drive for Lyft and Uber, you can't just decide tomorrow I'm going to go drive for one of these like Yellow Cab or any other taxi company. So I think that is clearly inequitable. And the way to do it would be you pass one background check. We can all agree on whatever it is, whether it includes fingerprint or not. That's not even the issue to me. The issue is that if you want to be a driver for hire in the city of Austin, you should be able to work for whoever you want to and go through one background check that clears you. You're good to go. Now go work for them. Let the market decide. But the way it is now, with a small group of companies, no matter how much you like them, have a loophole where they can operate a competitive service to the legacy cab companies, which we all have issues with. But that is what it is, and so they have a lot of market advantages. They don't need a governmental advantage, and so
Well, why don't the legacy drivers just make the changes they need to make to be competitive.
The city has tried to do that by allowing them to move the permits to the actual driver as opposed to with the companies. I think that helped. That helped at least the drivers be able to go from Yellow Cab to Austin Cab to Lone Star, but not
They
necessarily.
can do that anyway. They can quit.
No. See, the driver relationship to the company is a lot different. It puts the
What they got, like
advantage.
old baseball reserve clause, you signed up for life.
Joe, what do you have to say about this? That a lot of people have mentioned in discussion, say, why don't the media talk about the contributions that these companies made to Kitchen and to all those other
Because
talk about that?
that's not a.
It's not an issue?
No, it's really not.
Okay.
I mean, if the
That's
taxi cab, no, it's not secret at all. It's all over the internet. In fact, they have brought it up because people have asked about that. And when you look into it, that's when you realize that it's nothing. Because Ann Kitchen got, I think, $4,000 from the taxi cab companies, which is 20% of her campaign contributions. She won a 7-way race without a runoff. She had absolutely zero issues. She could have taken $0 and she would have, same result would have happened. Not only that, this vote again was 9-2. It wasn't Ann Kitchen versus the rest of city council. So I just don't, it's just not a real, it's a red herring argument. And so I don't, that's why people aren't talking about it. When you compare the millions, it'll probably be 5 or 6 million when we get the report later this week that Uber and Lyft are spending in the city. You can't compare it to a $4,000 contribution.
Well,
that doesn't even go to Ann Kitchen's pocket, by the way.
If what
It goes
you
to
say
her
is
campaign.
accurate, then the vote should be what, 9-2 against?
No,
One,
not
shouldn't it?
not
If-
no, not
I
at
mean,
all.
that's what
Not
you're
at
saying.
all.
You
No,
said
that's
they
not what
voted
I'm saying.
9-2, like
Because
that's a big damn deal.
what I started with this issue, because it is a big deal, and when I started talking about this, I mentioned
we'll
money
see
in
if
politics.
if it's 9-2 against 4.
No, because
I
the
bet it won't
money
be.
the money is about 250 to 1. And so I think that is the bigger issue in this. And that is what
I
I
thought it
started
was the
talking
vote.
about.
But even
That's the
in
money
that-
that's
even in
influencing
that
the
case-
vote.
Even in that case,
It's the
Joe,
money that's influencing the whole
there are a lot of
deal.
people
Exactly.
that make contributions to these political groups that you're talking
And
about.
there's no problem with
in
that's
previous
legal.
elections.
There's no problem.
The same people are telling them, hey, wait a minute, nah, we ain't gonna go there. We're not gonna give you money to fight something that doesn't even need to be fixed. So that's why you only see $15,000. David Butts and Peck Young, they raise more money than you can think of. Now, why can't they raise more than $15,000, David?
Okay,
So that's a message out there that people are saying, look, hey, we're not going to invest money to fight something that at the end of
Well, I
the
mean,
day.
I think if you look at the long list of community organizations that are voting against, I mean, the League of Women Voters, how often do they weigh in on an election?
Well,
They are like generally thought of as one of the most fair and balanced organizations when it comes to elections.
Well, how many of them
within the
take
last
Uber?
10 years,
Yeah.
I'll tell you.
How many of them take Uber?
No.
Well, I mean, unfortunately, it's because the Republican Party has pushed so
Well, I know
hard
what I was gonna ask you.
to
Why-
make voting difficult.
When you called Uber or Lyft, why did you call them as opposed to a taxi cab?
Because I think we need all options, and I have no problem taking. I took a yellow cab to a show on Saturday, and I took a yellow cab home. Why? Because when I walked outside the Mohawk, there was a yellow cab right there. But if there wasn't, guess what? My girlfriend was already on her app looking for a lift.
Well,
So-
know that in
Did you
taxi
fingerprint her?
cab, my dad used to drive a taxi cab.
My
They already
girlfriend?
been
He
fingerprinted.
would
Yeah.
drive it-
They've been
he would drive
Absolutely,
it-
I fingerprinted
He
my
would drive it for 12 hours, and his brother would drive it for the other 12 hours.
On the taxi cab?
Yes, on a taxi cab. Royce Taxi, yellow cab. And this happens even today.
Well,
Well,
and I think
I
if
don't
Uber
know
drivers
what
wanted
that
to
means,
be
but
taxi
it
cab
makes it right.
drivers, they would have done that in the first place.
No, they couldn't. That's the problem.
Well,
It's too hard.
anybody can go and anybody can go and do what they need to do to be a taxi cab driver if they want to.
Well, then you could say the same thing about Lyft and Uber getting fingerprints, though, and that's really what everybody's been trying to say. Well, why is the fingerprinting so difficult? I think the city said.
Why? But why is it the government's business to dictate it? That's what we're saying. It's not the government's business to
Well,
dictate
because
Not the government's
it
business to
actually is
dictate
to regulate ground transportation is the city's job. So whether they implement.
Okay, let me. I would agree with you today. And for decades, we've had ground transportation, and we have the city regulating limos. City regulates taxis. All right. Does it have to be that way forever?
It certainly doesn't have.
Hang on.
Okay.
Once government gets its fingers into something, I mean, I have constituents that argue that the government screws stuff up. They have screwed up the regulation of taxi franchises. I had to sit through hours of testimony. Man, you talk about a bunch of angry drivers. You got to see a room full of these taxi drivers that are really, really angry at the way they've been treated by the taxi franchises, right? They say they're underpaid, they're starving to death, they can't feed their families, they're working 70 hours a week. I mean, the complaints, man, I'm getting hammered and peppered with complaints, and I say, well, wait a minute. Where are the drivers for Uber and Lyft? Where are the hundreds of drivers pounding me saying they're being abused by their employer? They don't exist. They don't exist. I mean, your business model is broken. The government owns the taxi franchises, and it's a mess. So say the drivers. Hang on, I'm not done. So why do we keep doing it? It's broken. And they say, well, we want, the taxi drivers came to me and say, hey, we want the city council to arbitrate the disagreements we have with the taxi franchise business owners. And I said, you're kidding, aren't you? Why? Why make that a political issue? Right now, I've got a model of ride sharing. I got drivers that are driving, riders that are riding. They're taking care of themselves. Nobody's complaining. I don't have to get involved. Why can't I have the same thing for taxi franchises? The reason is the government's involved. They have screwed it up. The taxi franchises are a mess. The drivers are angry. They want me to get involved. I'm like, no. I've got a ride-share business model. It's working. The riders are happy. The drivers are happy. There's not hundreds of them down here yelling at me because the government screwed up their business, right? They're doing their own business. Don't get the government involved. I don't want the government involved in an argument between taxi drivers and taxi franchise owners. And the reason that argument exists, and it's a political war, is because the government got involved. Get them out of the business.
Yes.
Get them out of the business. Just because they've been doing it for 40 years doesn't mean they have to do it for the next 100 years.
Right. Well, I mean,
Get
I think
them
the
out of
system
business.
is broken, but it's definitely not this council's fault. And I
Broken
think that
because of
they've
the
made
government.
attempts to fix the problem. And if drivers
What
are out,
problem? What's the problem?
if drivers are out there, first of all, driving 70 hours a week, not making any money, what do you think is going to happen when you flood 10,000 more drivers in the city? You think they're going to make more money, or are they going to make less money? And so I do think it's important that we have professional drivers out there who drive for a living, who know what they're doing, know what's going on in the city. And you can say that, you know, taxi cabs have problems with their franchises, and I absolutely agree that's a real thing. And we need to reform the system, and that's a whole thing that I think that we need to do.
Yeah.
So, I mean, throwing the system out and just throwing it all away, I mean, no, that's not a good idea.
Yeah, because so let me review this quickly. I've got a
Go ahead and wrap up.
I've got a
2
government-controlled taxi franchise that's a mess. People don't like it. They complain about the service. The drivers are unhappy. It's a mess. Then I've got a rideshare, a new business model. I got a new business model with rideshare. The drivers are happy. The riders are happy. They're not coming down to City Hall
They're not all
demanding
happy.
that we fix it.
They're not all happy, though.
Leave them alone.
They can
Leave
quit.
them alone.
They can
Leave
quit.
them alone. Leave people alone. If I could say anything to the city of Austin, please leave people alone.
Stay out of it.
Stay out of it.
Wrap it up.
And vote against Prop 1.
Oh my God. Make your vote count.
Okay.
Yeah, make your vote count.
Make your vote count.
Again, you know, there's early vote right now until May the 3rd. Takes about less than 20 seconds to register once you get into the poll. But make sure you do vote either for or against, because at
Mike?
the end of the day, it's going to affect us. Mike?
Please shut the government down.
Just
shut it down.
Take Cruz for president.
Be sure to see that. And what do we got? 30 seconds. Next week, we're going to have criminal appeals court. There's a runoff going on in our party. We'll have one of the judges coming on.
And there's a Cinco de Mayo on May 9th and 10th.
Cinco
and,
de Mayo
these
coming
folks-
up.
These folks are going to be out there.
Yeah, so let's all, there's lots going on. Gabriel Nelly's got stuff. You can always come down there and give Mr. Zimmerman help. And we appreciate Mr. Deshotel coming on.
Absolutely.
You sounded
Thank you.
pretty good. I think we might have to have you back on for an opposition again sometime.
I love it.
Thanks for having us.
They treated you really different, right?
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Thank you.
10-4. Okay,
right.
good night,
I'm
folks.
gonna
Thank
get
you.
his dad
Bye-bye.
before all this
There we
is
go.
I'm
over.
going to tell him I'm...
Tell him I say what's up.
yeah.